Hi, I'm not an artist, but I am autistic and stubborn, so I decided to make an animation. About 6 months ago, my friend, Lord Ratz, told me he wanted to get into streaming, but he wanted to maintain his privacy and not show his face. This left him with three options. Option 1, a faceless streamer, which does significantly worse than other types. Option 2, becoming a VTuber, which is a lot more expensive and require more processing power from his computer, which he didn't have. Or option 3, becoming a PNG streamer. Since a PNG streamer is basically a bunch of static images, I told him that I could draw some for him. It's worth reiterating that I am not an artist. Ignore the fact that all I've published on my channels are art videos. I swear I'm not an artist. I'm studying English literature and creative writing and haven't learned any art skills since I was 13, and that teacher did not like me. Most of my art skills, if we can call them that, came from trial and error and copying some really cool artists, but I wouldn't get someone to pay me for this level of art. Back to my friend. I told him the quality wouldn't be the best and gave him some examples of the art styles he could choose from. After agreeing on all the details, what we wanted the character to look like, the poses I should do, and all the extra details, we both proceeded to forget about it until a few weeks ago when I woke up one day with the overarching want to make art, specifically this art. I ended up making 40 digital drawings with 10 unique poses and 10 paper copies in the span of 3 days. While I was making these drawings, I began to have a loop play in my head of Ray, that's the rat that sits on Lord Rat's shoulder, eating a cookie. I hope you can work out where this is going. I ended up approaching Lord Ratz about the loop and explaining to him what I had in mind, to which he responded that if I did make the animation, he would use it as a loading screen for before his streams. With permission granted, we entered into Art Hyperfixation Part 2, which I was not qualified to do. Aside from just not being an artist, I also have no animation experience or proper animation software. Thankfully, the art software I use also lets me do animation, but it's not its main focus, so its features are limited. Not that I would know how to use those features, if they were there, because I didn't watch a single tutorial. I knew that not watching one would probably cause the animation to be a lot harder than needed, but after attempting to find any animation tutorials that made sense to me, I got the idea that most animation tutorials expected you to have learnt a bit in school. They spoke to a higher level than I had, which just made me annoyed and frustrated, so I gave up on it. I'm sure there are some good ones out there, and I have a few I want to look at, but for this animation, I did not. This meant that not only did I not have the software for this, I didn't have the skills and I didn't have the knowledge. It was a miracle this was ever finished and this video was made. With all that context out of the way, onto the actual animation. I technically started this in a separate document where I played around with the features, worked out how to create new layers, new animation drawings, and how the timeline worked, and then I started on the real thing. After completing the sketch, I realized I forgot to turn on the timelines feature, which was a great start and totally not an omen for what was about to come. I turned it on and began a pretty tedious experience tracing the lines I already drew. Since the animation had a lot of features, such as the shoulders rising with breath, the hands pressing buttons, and the eyes moving, I drew everything I thought would be on a different animation sequence in a different layer. This also came with the problem of how, since my hands weren't steady enough to draw the lines exactly, and I wouldn't learn for multiple days later how to copy and paste a drawing, the entire thing had a choppy animation style. Once I realized that I couldn't really stop that without spending a lot longer on the project than planned, I committed to it fully, animating every drawing to move at least every 6 frames. This caused a whole new problem. Since the main body of the animation is a loop, with the only difference being the cookie getting smaller, I chose to just repeat the drawings by assigning them to the frames. This meant I had to learn the order those drawings had to go in. It sounds easy, but because I was going back and adding frames, deleting frames, and just generally making a mess of the first few layers, this left me with loops such as 1, layer 4, 1A, 1B, 2, layer 3, 2A, 2B, 3, layer 6, 3A, 3B, 4A, layer 7, 4B, and 4C. which when I'm doing this with 8 different layers at random intervals when the timeline is extended, it becomes a lot more complicated than it should have. I managed to keep most of them simple, it's just that one was particularly bad. And when the eyes had a loop of 48 different drawings that was not in numerical order, it was a little difficult to remember the order, and I couldn't find a shortcut to do it, so I had to write it down manually and put it in. That was fun. After figuring out the main loop, I had to figure out how Ray behaved. Since he was pretty small, I wasn't worried about messing up, but he did have the most animation, as I had to work out how to show him chewing and eating the cookie. It was a lot of fun and reminded me I don't know what rats look like, which I had to look up through the process. Similarly, Ray slapping Lord Ratz was both stressful and really fun, as I had to figure out how to make that work. Honestly, it's the bit I dislike the most. I wish I had more time to make that better and slow it down, but this animation had already taken up 4 days of my life, and I still had classes to take, so I moved on. The hand was pure torture. I still don't know how hands work, and this is why I normally draw cartoons and animals so I don't have to deal with hands. But I did my best to make what I had work. I made Ray collect the new cookie, which was my favorite bit of this entire animation. He looks so cute, and then I moved on to coloring. Overall, coloring was just boring. Without the interesting part of figuring out how to animate, I began to lose interest, and I had been working on this for 5 days, so my will to do it was beginning to waver. It was a lot of trying to figure out what the animation was doing so I could then work out what the colors should do and fixing little holes in the animation. By the time Lord Ratz was done and I moved on to Ray, I could begin to see the light at the end of the tunnel, and coloring in Ray was a lot more fun. That helped to rejuvenate me. Maybe it was because I preferred that part of the animation, but whatever. I was back to enjoying myself until we ran into the most frustrating part of this entire project. As previously stated, I am not an animator. I am not an artist, and I am a writer, meaning my tech normally just has to support words and it's fine. I don't even have a computer. I have a laptop given to me by the government so I can do assignments, and a black square drawing tablet that costs about £20 and is 2 years old. This meant my laptop didn't like the animation. Up until this point, the main problem is that it would take 10 minutes to save a file, which wasn't really a problem as I naturally shut everything down 10 minutes before I have to go anywhere, so it was pretty standard anyway. That was until one day before class, it wasn't saving. I decided since I had to get to class, I would just close my laptop and let it finish saving once I was in the new location. What a fool I was. My laptop doesn't normally fully close or crash, but it decided to crash, losing me 2 hours of progress. There went my happy feeling. I pushed it aside since I was in class, and when I got back, I recovered the progress I lost and even finished the animation, getting to put my favorite bit of this character's design on, which is the eye bags. But when I went to save the animation, it crashed again, losing me another 2 hours of progress. So, time to fix the animation again. This time I wasn't taking any chances. Finished the animation, immediately exported the animation. Because my laptop wasn't liking this, I kind of just left it there, put it at an angle to let the fans get some fresh air, and occasionally waving the mouse to ensure the laptop just didn't shut off. Funnily enough, I was on call with Lord Ratz at the time, and he got to hear about the entire disaster of that day, and then hear me full out cheer when it finished exporting. But I wasn't out of the woods. I still had to export the time lapse and save the document. Once again, I was not taking any chances and exported the time lapse first. Since you're watching this video, it's safe to say that the time lapse was successfully exported. With the same technique of only prodding the laptop every so often, our theory would die. It took a solid 30 minutes for this thing to save. So freaking long, but the time lapse was saved. Since I was tired, I just left my laptop somewhere safe and waited for it to save and got ready to sleep. It was pretty nerve-wracking when from the bathroom you can just hear the fans going wild. That wasn't fun, but it was saved eventually. That was such a celebration when I knew I would have all the progress and the animation project was over. Overall, it took 7 days, minus living and classes and sleep, for 30 seconds of animation. Was it worth it? Heck yeah. I really enjoyed doing this project. I know I sort of complained for most of it, but it was a lot of fun. Animation is always one of those things I've admired from afar, not believing I would have the skill to learn it, and diving in head first did mean I made this a lot harder than it had to be. I already know like 80 ways I could have streamlined the entire process, but you live and learn. Would I recommend doing this? Nope. If you really want to do animation, please don't follow my example. Go get a teacher or watch a proper tutorial. You don't have to be stubborn like me, but also don't be discouraged. Animation was not anywhere near as hard as I thought it would be. I wouldn't call it easy because it's not, and the end product I produced was not great, but still, if this is what I can produce with no art training or animation training, those of you who are artists or just like animation might be surprised with what you can also do. While I have your attention, if you like this video, share, comment, whatever it is that social media demands. I'm sorry the audio quality was pretty bad, but I did enjoy making this animation and video, and if you want to see more, it would be really cool if you let me know. Also, if you have any animation tips or tutorials you'd recommend, why not put them down below? You'll also find all my social media links and links to Lord Ratz. He really is an awesome guy and super funny, so check him out, and I'll maybe see you soon.